Hey, this is Dan Harris. Thank you for watching the Ironbird podcast. Today's podcast, we have Ben Harrow. He is the president of PAM Jets. Today, we talk about managing airplanes, Part 91 versus 135, and why they don't focus on 135 and only focus on 91. We discuss the differences between operating airplanes and charter, as well as NetJet memberships as well. Really hope you enjoy the podcast. I look forward to you watching it. Where have you seen like the most increase in pricing for managing and owning an airplane? Is it pilots?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's across the board, but pilots has probably been the biggest one, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, with the supply chain issues and maintenance, that's another big one. But definitely pilots, I feel like that's been the biggest kind of battle or like monster trying to keep my hands on and control and not just overflowing to become this just nuisance when it comes to the pilots. And the pilot salaries, that has been a huge thing over the past couple of, really the year or two, you know, with the pilot shortage. But to be honest, I think that from my point of view, where I sit, I feel like it's actually coming back down the other way now.
Yeah.
And I think that you start to see little like breadcrumbs in the news about it, about like freight companies and airlines starting to talk about furloughing. And
you're starting to get phone calls from pilots being like, hey, any job openings? Yeah.
It's interesting. I get a lot more texts of like, hey, how's everything at PAM? Oh, cool, man.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, you still need a global pilot?
Yeah.
Yeah. So stuff like that. So it's like those little hints that like, all right, the ship is kind of righting itself. And I think like anything, like we were talking about before with like the 450 market and all the different airplane markets, it's all cyclical, right? I mean, you experienced it in 2009. This would probably be my third economic kind of shift since I've been in this industry, coming out of COVID and where we are today. But yeah, I think you're right. It's probably the pilots, and that's a whole nother interesting dynamic that you could probably have a podcast on of pilots and dealing with pilots.
Yeah, it's like there's only so many levers, right? So you've got pay.
Yeah.
You've got, quality of life or days off. Like what else is there?
Yeah.
And is it you just going to keep paying more and more, and you can't, right?
So something that we did a good job of, I feel like, is we armed ourselves with the ammunition, right? And for us, I'm not the one dictating this is what the guy should be paid. That, at the end of the day, it's the owner's call, right? All I can do is arm him with the right information. So I think we do a good job of salary surveys and what people are getting paid and comparing it to what we actually are paying other crews and like light type aircraft, right? And just letting him know like, hey, like this is what the salary range is. This is what we suggest, and then, let us know where you want to put it. And then we then go back to we're the middle person, obviously, of course, to kind of keep that separation between church and state with the front of the aircraft and the back of the aircraft for multiple reasons. So yeah, during COVID, as we continued to grow, and everyone was buying planes post COVID, right? You buy the plane, well, then now you got to find the crew to fly it, right? And I thought that we did a good job of some processes that we put in place for that. I started doing pilot panels where we kind of had more of a set system of finding a crew member, right? We'll say I needed a pilot for a G450. We would put out the ads and collect resumes, and then between myself and some other people in the company, we would kind of thumb through resumes and reach out to folks and say, hey, would you, thanks for sending your resume. Would you be available for this time, and slot the time? And then we would slot time for them to sit in front of us virtually, of course. It would be myself, our chief pilot, and our head of HR. And then sometimes our client services person or even one of the founders would sit on there too. But we try and keep it around like 3 and just kind of have a conversation with them. And we would really narrow down, a lot of different factors that I think people don't think about, in terms of like, all right, on paper you look great, but can you carry a conversation? Are you a leader? For us, we're looking for pilots that can be leaders of these flight departments that we're running on the back end, more so, a little more heavy touch with some other accounts, a little less touch
Yep.
with other accounts. It just depends on what the owner needs and the mission set, and a lot of variables with that. But it's not just as cookie cutter of like, I need a 450 pilot, get me a 450 pilot.
It's got to have 5,000 hours.
Yeah.
And
and with that said, sometimes we would find pilots that had 5,000 hours, but I'd have a conversation with them and I'd be like, this ain't the guy.
Yeah.
This is not the guy.
Yeah.
And then, I would, through a friend of a friend or however, I'd come across somebody that's like really low on time and be like, you know what? I'm willing to put my name out there and take a risk, take the risk for you because you seem like the right dude. And this makes sense. I'm comfortable with the quote unquote risk of putting, because it's not, for example, in the case that I'm thinking of, the guy was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, was a commander of an F-15 squadron, tons of time, tons of flying experience. I know he can make tough calls. I know he's a leader. And it's not like just some young kid that I was taking a chance on, right?
Yeah, it's coming from a King Air or something.
Yeah, exactly. And trust me, I've been burnt, not on the pilot side, but I feel like we've been burned, just like I think in any business, you want to help people out and take a chance on folks. But you learn your lessons as you're growing the startup.
Yeah, I definitely know that. So do you tend to like military guys that are coming in?
It's
so like
funny
when you're taking the chance, is it like, hey, this guy served here, or is there a part of the military you're like, oh no, like, oh he's like, oh he's a Navy guy, like no, or he's an Air Force guy, or like
it's interesting. One of our clients, when we were going through the screening process, I said something about like, this guy was a military guy. And he's like, I just got to ask. He's like, because you were in the military, do you like favor that? Like, should I be also looking for like, if you're finding 3 military guys, that we find 3 civilian guys? And I said, honestly, no. I was like, there's a lot more to it because I've met some folks that come from the military that I kind of question, like, man, what did you do?
Yeah.
Like, I get it on paper, like you're a stud, but like, what did you do?
Why are you here now interviewing for this job? Like, shouldn't you already have the dream job?
Yeah. Why are you job hopping?
Yeah.
Something's going on.
Yeah.
And then I've met tons of civilian guys that, I've thought like, did you used to fly for the agency? Because you seem like you got your shit together.
Yeah.
And like, it seems like you tell me stories about you flying in and out of all these crazy countries in Africa and Southeast Asia. And like, what, no, I worked for a pharmaceutical company, and it's like, Dave is a great example. Like when I first met Dave, and that's a whole nother story we can get into, him telling me when he flew for Pfizer and all the things that he did. In my mind, I was like, did you fly?
Was it really Pfizer?
Yeah. So, I think at the end of the day, it's really just kind of sifting through each individual applicant and seeing who they are as like the whole package and not just like on paper, right?
What are your thoughts on dedicated pilots versus like pooling pilots of like types? You've got 5 G450s, and or would you rather? Or not really rather, what do you see as like pros and cons? I know for me, from the charter side, when I look at placing airplanes and I say, all right, you're a charter person, you need this revenue to make this airplane make sense financially. And if you do not have a pool of pilots, there's risk there, because if one pilot leaves, it may take you 3 months to hire, train, in dock, get a proving run, like getting a guy in or a girl in, that could be a big risk from a charter side.
Yeah.
I know it's different 91, but that's when I think of charter airplanes, that's like pooled pilots is something I see as an asset versus having dedicated crew members.
Yeah. I think it really just depends on like the mission and the end state and what you're trying to accomplish for that flight department and tail, right? I would say, throwing out some different scenarios, for us, we have some like type aircraft, 450s and 550s. So being able to share pilots when it makes sense, obviously ensuring that, all right, this plane's down for maintenance for a month, so I know these guys aren't flying. They can help out here because there's a big trip coming up to Europe, So stuff like that, it makes sense. But yeah, the 91 and the charter world are just two really separate beasts. And professionally, what we try and do as a company also is we try and stay away from the charter. That's just
Smart. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's a terrible business.
You don't like answering the phone call about the stale bagels that were on.
My favorite one was the blades on the blender were not sharp enough. They could tell the smoothie wasn't creamy enough. He's like, you need to replace the blade on the blender.
I'm sorry, sir. I will take care of it as soon as it lands.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of parlays into maybe like PAM Jets in general of like its philosophy. Do you want to just kind of explain how it got started and kind of what like the main mission is of it?
Yeah. So I guess we'll start kind of like how I found myself in this world and how PAM started, and then talk about the company. So, I medically, I was a Special Forces Detachment Commander, stepped on IAD in Afghanistan. I ended up medically retiring in April of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And, for me, I was really focused on trying to figure out what my next thing was going to be, which was a whole nother adventure. Personally, I obviously waking up in a hospital bed with no legs and then trying to figure out like what, not only do I need to figure out how
next.
And not only do I need to figure out like how am I going to get up and walk around or move? Like I need to figure out how am I going to provide for my family? Like what's my professional life going to be? I'm obviously not like running and gunning and jumping out of airplanes anymore. So like what's next?
Theoretically, could you have just like gone on disability and been able to live off a disability?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But personally, that's not me.
Yeah.
I've always, I'm a very driven person.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've always been competitive. So it just, I needed to figure out like what was next and I was going to do something. Mm-hmm. And no shame in it. I know plenty of people that have been banged up, worse than me, not as bad as I am. And they're just, doing their thing on disability.
Yeah.
I get that. Mm-hmm. But that's not me.
Yeah.
And so I'm an academy guy. I graduated from West Point, and a lot of my classmates at the time, if they didn't stay in a little longer to either do special forces or Ranger Regiment or some sort of something besides or a 5-year commitment after graduation, they had gotten out and gotten an MBA at grad school. Mm-hmm. And so, and then the guys that did do the 3-year commitment, and I was kind of teetering on it at the time. I had my wife send me a GMAT prep book, and I was like, I think I'm probably gonna end up getting out after this time. I also had put my packet in to attend JSOC selection and kind of go further down the rabbit hole of special operations. But 15 May 2012, that decision was made for me. So I was figuring out something. I had to figure out something else. So I'm starting to look at grad schools, right? And I remember having a phone conversation with the dean of admissions at Kellogg from Northwestern.
Yep.
And I'm telling her my story, and we're talking and doing the interview. And finally, she says, Ben, you have an amazing story. We would love to have you here at Kellogg, but I got to be honest with you. Why do you really want to go to business school? And it really kind of like put me on my heels because I was like,
well, that's what I'm supposed to do, right? That's what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, first off, I'm like, lady, I'm trying to like come to your,
trying to give you some money here. Yeah, the government give you some money here.
But it definitely really put me made me think like, all right, if you as a dean of admissions to this place is questioning why do I even really need to come here, I'm like, maybe you're right. And I gave her some kind of BS answer about,
of course, yeah,
because I
I want to further my career and be an expert.
But it really made me think about like, all right, what do I want to do? And I used my opportunity at the hospital where I was rehabbing and doing all my physical therapy and stuff and learning how to walk and get myself back up again during the morning. And then in the afternoons, I would do different internships and apprenticeships and just try and figure out like what was next. And I was a law major in school. So I did a couple of weeks at a law firm, and I realized I didn't want to do homework for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I actually did an internship at a wealth management firm in Potomac, Maryland, which actually paid off dividends because he's actually now one of our clients, and we help out a lot of his clients on the aviation side. And he's a great guy, and I've become great friends with him and his family. And I just used the time as an opportunity, like to figure out like what am I going to do. And fast forward, I end up getting the opportunity to go speak at an event in San Diego at a athletic training facility where agents would send their college football players to here to train up before the combine.
Yep.
And the guy basically guaranteed them like, hey, I can get him if he's a
Bump
second
you up a
rounder.
round,
Exactly.
yeah.
So
That's
like,
pretty cool.
so it was that type of training facility. So I got invited to go speak, and the guy was like, hey, like what can I do while you're out here? And I said, look, I'm not looking for a paycheck. Just cover my expenses to get out there. All I'm asking is that you can sit me down and get me in front of whoever, because I need a network now.
Yeah.
And I knew that was like the biggest thing was networking. And while I was out there, I ended up having dinner and meeting one of the owners of this cybersecurity company based in San Diego. So from that conversation, Dave Mendelson, who's one of the founders of PAM Jets, had already taken a job at this cybersecurity company about 6 months prior, and he was running all the commercial stuff. And one of the brothers who I had met that started the cybersecurity company said, hey, Dave, next time you're out in Maryland, meet with this guy, Ben.
Yep.
Tell me what you think. So Dave and I had breakfast in Bethesda, Maryland, and got to know each other. And Dave was running all the commercial stuff. They seemed hungry to the opportunity and open to the opportunity of continuing to grow their business in the government space.
Yep.
I was living in the DC area, which is the mecca of IT government contracting. I also still had all my security clearances so I can get into doors, and it was pure startup. And for me, it was new and interesting and just something kind of completely different from
cool
what I've been
space.
doing.
Yeah.
Cool space. I'm not an IT guy.
Yeah.
But I like for me, I like the problem solving piece to it.
Yeah.
Here's a problem.
Yeah.
I'm a cybersecurity company. I am starting from zero. I want to sell to the government.
Yep.
Go do great things.
Yeah.
And for me, that is probably one of the biggest things, and we'll talk about it in aviation too. The similarities of what I did as an SF guy. Hey, there's country X. There's bad things happening. The United States wants to make something that wants to change it. Go figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Just one thing at a time, right? Boom. Then
Yeah.
the next one. Then the next one.
Yeah. So fast forward a little. So Dave's story. He was a regional chief pilot at United. Ran Pfizer's corporate fleet, and just flew his entire life. Like he eventually should be sitting in the seat too for you to interview someone from the aviation
He's a
space.
pure aviation guy.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so Dave and I worked together at this company for about 2 years. And we did everything from like any government stuff I brought him in on, any commercial stuff I helped him with. And we just became best friends and worked really well together. And after about 2 years of us being there and learning lots of business life lessons, right? We're talking about like your first job, like how eye-opening that is of good things to do, but also the bad things not to do, right? And so a lot of good lessons learned there. Dave turned to me.
I learned a lot about cash flow in my first job.
Yeah. Right? Like just things you don't we don't have a money tree that you just shake, right?
How like one bad thing can really snowball into a lot.
Yeah. So Dave turns to me after about 2 years and says, hey, I'm leaving the company. I'm going to go start up this aircraft management company with a good friend of mine, Tony Yoder. And so right away, I'm like, my first thought is like, God damn, you're leaving me here by myself, And, but he says, look, would you be interested in coming and being employee number one with us and like building this up? And I was like, absolutely. Yes. I just got to let you know, all I know how to do is jump from planes and how to drop bombs from planes. And he's like, don't worry. He's like, I've worked with you long enough that you'll pick that up. I just need somebody to help run the business and grow the business with me. He's like, I'll take care of all the aviation stuff.
Yeah.
He's like, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And so that was 2017.
It's a
April of 2017.
people business when it comes down to it.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's a big relationship business. And I think that, getting into who we are as a company with PAM Jets, I like to think that's one of our differentiators, right? First, right off the bat, we spend $0 on marketing, and we don't advertise because we're more focused on finding and meeting clients that we know will be a good long-term fit for us, and vice versa. So, with that said, we actually make a conscious effort of leaving a lot of money on the table because, I bet you in a year we probably look at 15 maybe on just under 20 different projects of planes that are brought to us. So like, hey, there's somebody you should meet.
Yeah.
Would you like to manage my plane? And on average, we'll only take 4.
Wow.
But we make that choice, right? Because we're not a jack of all trades. We're operators and problem solvers. And some of the for not casting any judgment, some other management companies I can do charter for you. I'm a maintenance
They'll
company.
take
right?
everything. Yeah.
Exactly. And I get that. In the beginning, when we were a true startup, you kind of have to do that.
Yeah.
Because you have your idea, you have your kind of your mission statement of who you are, you have your kind of your end state and goal of where you want to get to. And then it's like, all right, I guess I'm going to talk to this person, and then I guess I got to talk to this person, and I got to figure it out, you know?
For us, year one, if anyone handed us money, we would have done it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's funny how it grows. Like year 2, we got better. Now year 3, it's like, okay, now we've got that focus on what really works for us. And it's still hard. We're still kind of moving and we're like constantly trying to pull us back to that center.
Yeah. I mean, we joke about it all the time, like the stories that we could write a book about, in the beginning of like, there's a guy in Africa that has a plane. Would you guys be interested? Maybe,
He's going to write us a check.
Yeah.
Then we'll talk to him.
Of course, nowadays I'd be like, absolutely not. I'm not touching that.
So what do you think is that if you were to create a perfect client, like what do you think is that perfect client that works really well that you don't turn down their management?
So first off, I don't think that there's a perfect client in terms of like aircraft type.
Yeah.
Because we manage everything from like a small King Air in our hangar to G650 ER. And so it's across the board. But it really is on the relationship piece and if we're a good fit for one another. That's kind of the first thing that we look at. The other little variables that we look at, is there a problem to solve? And usually 99.9% of the time I'm having a conversation with somebody because there's a problem to solve. Either
them coming from another management company or they have a travel problem, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it's not even that extreme. Sometimes it's I'm looking at buying a plane. I've only done charter before.
Yep.
I've heard that I need a management company. I think I need a management company.
Yeah.
So it's there's different levels of the problem to solve. Some of the problems to solve is, I feel like my pilots are taking advantage of me. I'm paying way too much. I don't enjoy stepping on my plane anymore. Stuff like that. Like that's more of the farther side of the spectrum.
I feel like about my nanny sometimes.
Yeah.
Man, she's taking advantage of me.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think that there's like a cookie cutter person that we're looking for. It's an aircraft owner that we feel we have a good relationship with. It's a personal thing, and that we're actually providing some sort of service and helping them out in a way.
You want to talk about like a recent airplane that you thought like ended up being a good fit, and maybe one that wasn't a good fit?
Yeah. There was an aircraft that we had for a while that it was a good fit in terms of they had a big problem to solve. They needed basically not even kidding, the plane was almost just dumped on us like in a day, left,
towed onto your ramp.
Yeah,
like,
like really just, hey, come pick it up, like type deal.
Wow.
And they had no full-time crew, nothing.
Wow.
And
were they just operating with like contract guys and contract maintenance guys and like
exactly?
It's crazy. And
I think the history of it, they had a full-time crew. I think that maybe the captain,
it's like a do it everything captain.
Yeah, he did a lot, and then I think that maybe he left, and then he was kind of an integral piece of that dynamic. And then they were trying to supplement with contractors, and then other people left, and they weren't. The crew wasn't happy.
I think that's like one of the main parts of the strength of a management company. It's like when you've got a captain that does it all, and sometimes it works out well, but like it's just such an easy point of failure.
Yeah.
If you've got one guy that does everything for you,
And you're hitting on one of my biggest pet peeves in terms of contingency planning, where for me, I look at everything as, all right, this is my primary, this is my alternate, this is my contingency, this is my emergency. And coming from the special operations world, especially as a Green Beret, having a PACE plan, PACE, you have a PACE plan for everything. You have a PACE plan for your comms. You have a PACE plan for your medical evacuation. You have a PACE plan on how you're going to get to the objective. You have a PACE plan for your weapon systems. You have a PACE plan for everything.
Yep.
And so to see a pilot doing everything, also, by the way, he needs to fly. Like that's like a lot of red flags go up.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think a lot of the times that we've dealt with that in terms of a crew member, like a PIC, a pilot that's like running the account, you know, it takes a lot of gentle massaging in terms of ego. Like, hey man, like I'm not here to like fire you.
Those are tough. Yeah.
I'm here to help you out and take some of this off your plate. And I think in the beginning, and for the most part, we've done a really good job of it. Of let me take this off your plate, and then they get comfortable with this, and they'll be like, oh hey, by the way, can you take these other ils?
Yeah.
And then within a year's time, they're just flying.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so back to that one account, they had nothing. We ended up staffing it for them, got it up and running. I felt like a kind of a picture perfect account because how much they flew, and their schedule was constantly changing and dynamic. I mean, they were flying 500 hours a year, 600.
That's a lot. Yeah.
You know,
that's a lot.
But the one piece that I felt like where it turned out that like, all right, maybe this isn't a good fit. And at the end of the day, I felt like it was mutual, and it was like a mutual breakup, and we're still friendly, and I still talk to them, and you know, if they ever wanted to come back, I'd be open to it and help. I still help them out however I can. Was the communication piece, and that I think is big in terms of like when I talk about looking for the right fit, long-term relationship, is clients that we can talk to, right? That we want to manage. You're paying us to manage the plane. You're paying us for our advice. You're paying us to operate it for you. But if you're not willing to even have a phone call with us, and I have to keep going like through people, and things aren't getting fixed, it's like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. And
so I think that we've like lessons learned. As much as it stings, especially revenue, cash flow wise, we've said, you know what, this just isn't working out.
Yeah, the communication style doesn't help us provide what we need to do to basically provide the level of service that we really want.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's definitely some same in the charter world. When you end up going through 2 to 3 layers, like so much stuff gets lost. Of like, hey, like, no, we can't go into this airport, or this there's a duty time issue, and no, you need to be out before sunset, and like the more layers that involved, it just dilutes it, and then bad things happen.
Yeah.
And then you get blamed for it. It's like, well, I was communicating what needed to be happen. It just didn't get to you.
Yeah.
And that ends up making a bad relationship and can be a safety issue.
The communication aspect of what you're talking about is huge. Like we kind of have our own internal like rule of like, all right, I need to communicate something.
Yep.
Can I pick up the phone and call them first?
Yeah.
Let me pick up the phone. If I can't pick up the phone, then do I text them? If I can't text them, then I'll email.
Yeah.
And
I think picking up the phone has gotten lost. It's crazy how people like, oh, I emailed them.
Yeah.
It's like, well, do they email you back? Like, just pick up the fucking phone.
Oh my God.
Just pick up the phone. Like it cuts through so much of the bullshit.
Yeah.
And it gets right to the point of like, just pick up the phone and talk to them.
Yep.
And it's lost, and I think it'll only get worse. But anytime I'm like, if you can just pick up the phone and call somebody, it's people appreciate it. One.
Yep.
And you get right to the point, and like you lose so much over email and text.
Yeah.
Like that tone, it's just like so much easier just to pick up the phone. But I know a lot of people don't want to do that anymore. It's just like crazy.
I wonder. I mean, I assume it's a generational thing.
Yeah.
Because we all text so much now.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, there's nothing worse than getting an email and it's like 2 paragraphs long, and I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And I'm about 100% certain all my clients don't have time to read a 2-paragraph email. Like, hey, just this is what I need doing that. It's better just to pick up the phone.
Yeah. So how many airplanes are you guys currently managing?
17 aircraft right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
started from nothing.
Wow. What was the launch year of PAM Jets?
2017.
Wow.
And so our first plane was blessed in a way. Our first plane was a G650ER.
Jesus.
That flew 12 to 1,300 hours a
Whoa.
year. Yeah. They were so busy.
Baptism by fire.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like good and bad, right? Like, all right, great. This is our first client. It's a big one. Oh, by the way, there's a lot to do.
Yeah,
everyone's
that's like 3 airplanes in one.
I mean, I would do trip sheets. Dave would do trip sheets. You know, also, by the way, trying to go out and grow the business. And there's just so much going on. But yeah, that was a real busy account. But, you know, from that one account, a lot of great lessons learned on like things to critique.
Do you still have that account now?
So they sold the plane, but we still help them out in terms of like supplementing charter for them.
Yep.
And like finding, you know, recommending people. And I think that they're actually in, just recently they're looking to get a new aircraft.
Yeah.
So
it's tough to, when you own an airplane, when you don't have one.
Yeah.
It's hard.
The relationship piece, like we were talking about, that's because of who we are and what we did, what they know that we can do for them and how we operate. That's why they're still sticking around and not just like, hey, this was great. Yeah. If I ever need you again, I'll give you a call.
Yeah.
Right. So that's huge.
Well, it's trust. They know they can trust you.
Yeah.
Which is big because, you know, it's so easy to get a bad deal or a bad airplane, especially in the charter space.
Yeah.
When all these companies are margin, hey, I can sell it. You know, if I can sell it at 30, what's the lowest I can buy it at?
Yeah.
So it's like, if I got it sold at 30, can I buy it at 15? It's like, yeah, you can buy it at 15, but that airplane at 15's a piece of junk.
Yeah.
And hasn't been refurbed in 20 years and is musky. But if you actually just bought it at 25, yeah, you're only making $5,000, but like, that's an experience the client would really appreciate and really enjoy.
Yeah.
And yeah, they'd probably be fine at the other one, but just like they wouldn't get that experience that you could really give them. And that's, you know, what I think it should be about, that incredible experience, because flying privately is incredible.
Yeah.
And it should be an awesome, what can you do to make that experience fantastic every single time someone flies? Not just like, how can you transact and get someone from point A to point B?
Yeah. I mean, tailoring the plane to the needs of the owner is huge. And there's a lot that goes into that, right? And it's getting to know who they are, understanding their mission set, what the company does, you know, where they travel to, what that's going to require. And then for us on the back end, ensuring that we're putting the pieces into place to support that.
Yeah.
You know, for us, I always say we never say no right away unless it's immediate loss of life, limb, or eyesight.
Yeah.
I said never say no right away. We may have to say no, but if we have to say no, we need to come back with a couple of different scenarios or like, hey, I can't put you here, but I'm going to put you here, and this is why.
It's like getting into Aspen at night.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I got a great one for you. One of our clients had to fly down to the Caribbean for a destination wedding.
That's a high risk flight right there.
So it wasn't the DR, but it was somewhere around the DR.
Yeah.
And the only reason I'm saying the Dominican is because the
Turks or one of the Bahamas.
Yeah, I think it was Turks.
Yeah.
So they fly to Turks. We get a call later that he was in he was one of the groomsmen. The bride's family somehow ended up at this no-name like little regional airport in the Dominican.
Ooh.
And the groom was like, "Hey man, can we use your plane to go pick them up?" Right? And so he's like, "Hey, can we make this happen?" So of course we're like, "Yeah, like let us figure it out."
Yeah.
So me and our VP of Client Services, Emilio, we're trying to figure out like, all right, like what's
can you get a permit here? And yeah.
So it turns out it's not La Romana, it's not Santo Domingo, I don't even remember the name of it. And luckily, I mean, I can habla a little bit, but Emilio is, from Cuban family, so he can speak the Caribbean Spanish a lot better than I can. he ends up calling the manager of the airport at like 11:30 at night at her house while she's throwing a party.
No way.
And he's like, "Hey, I need you to open up the airport.
Turn the
like
lights on.
I need to be open like the next hour. We're flying in." And hey, not a problem. And we took care of it. And we went back and we let him know, like, hey,
That's
like we'll take care of it. Yeah. So it's stuff like that of just getting the job done at the end of the day. Like I said, like it's a personal thing of mine that I really enjoy, and that's why I like this space of being able to solve people's problems. And I think that we try and do that as a company.
It's incredible how much you can actually get done. Like there hasn't been many scenarios where like I've gotten a call and I needed to get someone from point A to point B and I couldn't get it done.
Yeah.
There's just like, and I feel like the industry in itself has that mindset of like, we'll figure it out. And it's like, it comes back to, like you said, that network. Like I can pick up the phone and call some people and they can, like if they can't get it done, they'll be like, oh no, but call this guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, they'll get you to a place where they're going to get you, they're going to get that mission done for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like a cool part of the industry is like where like all other industries just be like, nah, it's like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, no thanks. This one would be like, maybe like, let me call you back. And they'll be like, oh, call this guy. Like things like that help. Like, let me open the runway or open the airport for you. And it's like pretty interesting that like, listen, I've only been in, this has been the only industry I've been in my entire professional career. So like that's the only real experience I have, but I feel like it's an industry that consistently gets things done no matter how tough it is.
Yeah. I mean, I think for the most part, I think that there are a lot of people in this industry that are willing, that want to get it done.
Yeah.
I've also come across a lot of vendors and folks to work with that are just like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And then it's
no,
like,
sorry. Yeah.
Well, you know what? You're not my guy.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll figure it out without you. And when I get there, I'll give you a call and let you know I got here.
Yeah, exactly. There's sometimes for me, it's kind of funny. Like if I see an airplane flying empty and I'd be like, hey, like I see your airplane's flying empty. Like here's where I need to be from a price standpoint to make it make sense to the client. And like anytime they're like, oh no, like, no, that won't work. I'm like, well, you've already collected the revenue of the round trip. Let me give you, I know it's not your full rate, but it's not adding any cycles. It's perfect for you. No, like, no, this is what the guidebook says. And I don't, never go. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I not that I enjoy it, but I'll always call like the day before. Hey, did you end up selling that airplane? Oh no, you flew it empty.
Yeah.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah. Well, remember me next time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's like I wanted to get this deal done with you, but you couldn't think outside your little box there to like get this deal done. And being in the space where I did 100 quotes a day.
Yeah.
I knew the ones that I could win. It's like, all right, well, I've got 3 hours of paid revenue. How can I borrow an hour or two of paid revenue? I still collect 1 extra hour of double dip. And it's like, it's a win for everybody. Yeah. Which brings me to next question is, why are you focused on 91 and no charter?
Well, besides not having to apologize for the stale bagels, as a true management company and being a fiduciary in regards to, I've never seen it pencil out for the owner. Mm-hmm. And we're very open with them about it that, hey, I know it was sold to you this way, but here's the reality.
The offset.
Obviously there's all these more cycles being put on the plane, which means that the maintenance is being sped up. It just doesn't really work. And that's obviously, I'm not like, I appreciate the charter industry. You guys are great.
People need the charter, right?
Exactly.
Some people need it.
But it just, I think that there's probably a certain client that, he's really not flying a lot, or
flying 50 hours, 100 hours.
But the folks that are using their plane because, the folks that bought a plane because they needed the plane, because they're flying more than 250 hours a year, they need it for work. They want to use it for a little bit of pleasure. And then at the same time, trying to squeeze in charter trips and having, and then just the headache of like someone like yourself having to piece together and play the charter Sudoku of like, all right, well, maybe if we go from Naples, Florida to Tampa and then to Biloxi, I can get you back to Miami.
Hey, owner, can you move your departure a day later? Or it's like, no, that's not why I own an airplane, to move departure dates or times.
Yeah, exactly. So, we've really been pretty just open and honest about it of if it makes sense for them to actually put it on a charter certificate.
Not the right client for you.
Exactly. And to be honest, none of our planes now, like we've actually made a conscious effort, I think starting last year, but definitely this year, I can say it knowing it 100% certainty, we have 0 planes that charter. And we're just having conversations with an owner now down in Boca, and I've been very open about them that, hey, if this works for you, if our model is something that you want to be a part of and this helps, I'm just letting you know we're not looking to charter. And he does charter now for all his reasons. And that's for him to decide. Yeah.
But when you've looked at the numbers, it doesn't pencil out for you guys.
No.
The additional wear and tear, the cycles, the maintenance costs.
Exactly.
Sometimes you got to add a 3rd crew member to really get to the numbers.
I mean, look, we don't mind getting paid the 15% on it.
Yeah.
Using your asset to go and make money. But at the end of the day, you're the one that's paying for all those pieces that make it go, right?
Yeah.
So, but look, like I said, I totally appreciate the charter world, and I understand that it's people, it's needed, and like we were saying, some people it actually makes sense for them because they don't need to use it all the time, and it's good.
Yeah. Where maybe they didn't need to buy it, but they like owning their own airplane. The crazy thing about the numbers is we ran an RFP for a Hawker 800 where a guy, was flying 50, 100 hours, wanted to offset. And the difference in the budget costs, I saw a budget that a guy was making $100,000, and then I saw a budget that cost $1 million. How can that be? It blows my mind.
Let me guess, it cost him $1 million to fly 91, but he was making 100,000 doing 135.
Yeah. So, but it's like, I don't. The numbers are the numbers. If you're flying the airplane 400 hours, the pilots are going to cost what they cost.
Yeah.
The maintenance costs what they cost. The fuel costs what they cost. So it's like, how are we seeing? And this happens to airplane owners probably every day when they do this, right? How would you tell an airplane owner to actually like? Are people just bold-faced lying, or like that's what I'm like? You're just lying to what all these things actually cost.
Yeah. So we're gonna get real on this podcast. No. So I don't think it's just straight up lying.
Because are people just like, the way I see it is, all right, you're straight up lying to the airplane owner to get that airplane into your fleet.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to leave, especially if you're flying 135. To conform a 135 airplane can sometimes take up to 3 months.
Yeah.
And if you are if you need that revenue, you don't want to lose 3 months to go move to another. So they're going to lie to you, get you in their fleet, and then it's going to be, you won't be able to leave because you need that revenue.
Yep. They got you. I mean, I think that there's, as amazing as this industry is, and like in any industry, I guess there's good and bad. I think that's part of the smoke and mirrors of it, right? And a lot of those P&Ls. Here's the potential of what you can make.
Yeah, here's what maintenance might cost.
Yeah, but guess what? You need a new front wheel assembly. That's gonna be $85,000. So you're actually not making 100. You're making 15.
Yeah.
And then it just continues to snowball.
And the pilots now. We need to pay them 20% more.
Yeah, and I've seen when we were in the beginning, like we were talking about, you got a plane, I'll take the plane. What do you do? I don't care. I'll take the plane. I remember they were writing checks, like you're talking, like, here's $50,000 this month because your plane did so much charter, and like that's great. But then there would also be like 3 consecutive months of like, hey, you owe us $73,000 for that wheel.
Dude, those are hard conversations to have with an airplane owner. When they've made money in a month, their mindset has completely changed.
Yeah.
They get pissed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tough conversation to have after you've handed them a check. It's like, yeah, it was a great month because that big maintenance event was not scheduled this month. It was actually scheduled the following month. Yeah. And now when your airplane's down 15, 20 days and you only have 10 days to produce revenue.
Yeah.
Now it's like, I remember we had an airplane we were floating coast to coast. It was a 450. It was a great airplane. It's now down he sold it. It's down in Carlsbad now. But we got into such a hole because he was running the airplane on pure charter. That's how he was paying for everything. And we were doing a good job, but then he had a big maintenance event and it spilled over into 2 months. And then all of a sudden that bill he could never pay back that bill.
Yeah.
And it just like, it snowballed into a bad relationship to the point where it was almost $1 million owed. And we had to put a lien on the airplane. And that completely destroyed the relationship at that point. But as an airplane operator, it's like I can't let you sell this airplane and then not collect that money. The only way to do it from a safe business standpoint was put a lien on the airplane. But it was like that paying for that airplane via charter revenue is like a risky game.
Yeah.
If you can't own and operate that airplane, it's very risky. Now, a lot of people do it, and I've seen do it, and I've even helped people do it.
Yeah.
I put them in the right position, but it's like if they don't, things happen. It's tough. But it just goes back to it's like, are people just lying to airplane owners' face, or are they just saying, oh, here's the best case scenario?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
You know, going back to the beginning of PAM, you know, trying to throw everything against the wall. We thought, all right, like charter is lucrative, right? Like when you start, like you're talking about, when you do the math, and if a plane can fly 50 hours a month, like that's great, right? You know, 50 times 12, that's
makes
great
good
money.
revenue, yeah.
But the reality is that it's not going to be flying 50 hours every month because there's going to be maintenance events, people go on vacation, there's ebbs and flows of the charter market, right? Sometimes it's flying, sometimes it's not. So it's a little bit of both. Unfortunately, I think sometimes it's a little more of people just trying to get their hooks into clients and bring that plane on the fleet. So once again, it's another reason we purposely choose not to play in the charter world, and I just want to do Part 91 and manage planes.
Yeah. Well, hopefully there's plenty of people that still want that revenue. So
yeah,
I have a business,
yes.
So that'd be good. But no, I mean it must be nice not having to play in that world, because when you look at the numbers, that charter number can skew things so differently, and it's like, I think the charter rate's here, or I think we'll get this many hours, but it's a guess.
You know, it's like the gold rush of charter, I feel like during COVID, where everybody was chartering. And like before COVID, I remember, like, for example, going from Van Nuys to Teterboro is like maybe like $36,000 on a G4, right? And then you watch it like tick up. And like a year later, I remember helping someone out and getting them a quote for somebody, and it was $74,000 one way. And I was like, yeah, man. I was like, I'm speechless too.
Yeah,
I was
that's
like,
where the market is.
You know, and that's great for the charter operator at the time. They're hitting the gold rush. You know, if you had some sort of crystal ball to figure out when's the time to put a couple of planes into the charter world, you'd probably do very well. But
so look at Jet Edge. They hit that on the mark really well.
Yeah. So
but now I'm seeing the reverse. So it's like as that pricing coming back down, the people especially that bought airplanes during COVID bought them based on a budget of this hourly rate, right?
Yeah.
So now as that hourly rate comes down, their operating costs have gone up, fuel, crew. So now there's a tipping point where, okay, this airplane's not profitable. So either these companies are going to close or they're going to have to sell these airplanes back into the marketplace. That's going to now continuously push inventory up and pricing back down.
Yep.
So there's going to be like this interesting, I think over the next 6 months to a year, more airplanes are going to flow into the marketplace. It's going to really push inventories up and then pricing down. And then eventually the pricing of the inventory will get to a point where you can start to figure out how to make money on the charter again.
Yeah.
But I wonder, like, my perfect scenario is in the G550 marketplace.
Yeah.
Like where I wish I was smarter and better with numbers, because I want to say, all right, when the G550 marketplace, like if I can take two graphs of inventory pricing and then like charter revenue, it's like, all right, when it crosses at this point, it's like that's when you pull the trigger on airplane inventory.
Yeah, the inventory thing, I mean, I think that we're seeing it now. Like during COVID, maybe it was a 550 or 450. I forget which type, but there's like maybe like 3 on the market.
Crazy.
You know,
yeah.
it was just insane. But to your point, I think that a lot of the people that got into those big aircraft maybe didn't realize the true operating costs because maybe somebody gave them a P&L that had some smoke and mirrors attached to it.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, and now they're putting it back on the market. And I mean, I haven't looked at it recently, like maybe last month or a couple of weeks ago, excuse me. There was like 40 some odd like 550s on the market.
Yeah.
And
that's
so
my favorite airplane.
Yeah, same. I think that's probably
that airplane does everything.
Does everything. It's right now. I think right now and in the next 6 to 12 months, you'll get even more of a steal and a bargain on that aircraft.
Yep, it does everything. It's you've got parts, you've got pilots. It operates really well, and it's like the newer airplanes don't really do much more. Like the newer Gulfstreams and the newer Globals, they've got a couple, maybe a little bit, but it's like you're not really going that much farther that you need that 15th hour.
Yeah, it's
like the 550 does everything for you. Yeah, your cabin, altitude maybe is a little bit, but it's still a great cabin altitude. It sounds great inside. Like it does everything. And it's like, there's gotta be a point where that hits a number where it's like, that's going to be the best buy in the marketplace.
It's interesting watching, and once again, not being an aviation guy, but finding myself in this space, Gulfstream's coming out with the G700. There's the new Global coming out. It's interesting because people, I think, the customers are attracted to like the shiny new toy. However, as an operational guy, I'm thinking, all right, it's bigger, but do you realize that you can't get into some of the same airports that you could with like these same other planes that will take you the same time to get there? Do you realize that why get the private jet if you can't fly into the airport, the regional airport with the 6,000 foot runway that you were going to before?
Well, Gulfstream's not going to tell you can't land in Aspen.
Yeah, of course. But are the hangars built to hold an aircraft like that? Because that's an issue that I know they're having with some of the new Globals. I know in Teterboro, we have some planes down at Miami Fountain Blue, and they're fine. Like they actually measured it. Like, and there's like I think he said there's 11 inches between the top of the tail and the top of the door.
Yikes.
And so it's like, it's super close. Like they put a GoPro on it and everything and measured it. But I know up in Teterboro, they're redoing a whole bunch of hangars up there just specifically to house people with 7500s. Right. But yeah, it's like, the operational mindset, that's great. But like, are you thinking about the second and third order effects of buying that shiny new toy? Because you're not like, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Why not pay $50 to $60 million less, get something like the 550, continue to do what you're doing for your mission set, and oh, by the way, I mean you're saving like $50 million.
Go buy a boat or something. Yeah. That's crazy. All right, last question. If you had, and it was originally 25, but now I think maybe like 15 million, maybe the perfect window.
Yeah.
If you had like 15 million, what do you think is your best buy in the market?
I mean, I guess I would think that you could still go after a 550. I'm not 100% sure on that. But like the 550 or 450, that's what I would go after. But like you said, with the pilots and the parts, it's huge. Yeah, that's so much on the back end that I don't think people realize, and they're just attracted to the shiny new toy. That's probably what I would go after.
Yeah, I always enjoyed the Falcon 2000s, but they're starting to get very expensive to operate from like an engine program standpoint. Like, that's another thing. It's like you buy this airplane, but all of a sudden, like the engine programs are crazy.
Yeah.
So it's like so many things go into you factor in when owning these airplanes. And I think when you are like looking to get an airplane, even though like your first thought is to go right to an airplane broker, I think it's really smart to go to an airplane management company, because just like you want to align yourself with a company that can give you the good details. And I think there are a lot of great airplane brokers out there, but there are plenty that just want to get a deal done.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I was recently down in Sao Paulo, Brazil for, was it Corporate Jet Insiders? They had an event down there, and we have some clients down in South America, and just also I'm in Florida, so it's it's a huge Latin American market there. So I went down there just for networking, meeting some people, and I had some other meetings in Brazil, and the event was interesting. They did a great event. I would go again.
I like the corporate jet.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, and it was great for networking and meeting some folks down there. And but what I thought was interesting was it was so like, and maybe it was just because it was that area of the world, or they were focused on that, but it was so transactional, like fixed and focused on the discussions, which I understand that's a piece of this industry.
Yep.
They talked a lot about the maintenance as well. They hardly ever brought up the idea of a management company.
Interesting.
And during one of the like the questions where they had like 3 people up on stage and you could like type in questions, I said, and it was whatever they're talking about, they had like the brokers up there talking about like the process of the sale of like the acquisition. And I asked a question. I said, when do you bring in the management company? Right? Because you would want them to come in kind of like right at the same time that you want the management company to be standing right behind you to ask the question to, does this look right?
Yeah.
Can you look at these logs?
Yeah.
And help out.
Yeah. What do these engine cycles look like? How much, when's my next big maintenance event?
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was interesting. I mean, I think it's also a cultural thing down there where the idea of a management company is kind of a relatively new idea compared to I'm just going to hire my captain and take care of it, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's starting to change a little more now.
Where can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about PAM Jets or operating an airplane or aircraft management?
Yeah, our website, pamjets.com. They can email me. I'm sure you could tag it on this. bharrow@pamjets.com. And yeah, I mean, just always open to conversations with aircraft owners that have a problem to solve, and they could potentially be a good time partnership and long lasting relationship.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Ben, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
No, this has been great. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for watching the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you like this podcast, please like and subscribe. If you'd like to discuss more about private aviation, please email us at fly@flyironbird.com or check out our website at www.flyironbird.com. Thanks so much. We look forward to the next one.